Part 1.
First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hello, this is Business Nationwide. Daniel speaking. How can I help you?
Hi there. I've recently started up a small business and I noticed on your website that you run some courses for people who are starting up.
That's right, we do. We offer 2 courses which may be of interest to you. Our first course is called Getting Started. It's a 2-hour evening course and it runs from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. We discuss things like, is starting a business right for me? Writing a business plan and some of the legal issues. It runs at various locations in the area. Where are you based?
I live in Eastleigh.
Eastleigh. So the closest course to you would be in Hanbridge. And the next one is on the 20th of March.
Uh-huh. And how much is that?
That one is free.
OK, well, it might be worth it.
But did you say you're trading already?
Yes, since about August.
Well, you might be better off taking our 3-day course, Business Basics. It's not free, I'm afraid. It's subsidised and costs £80 for the 3 days, unless you've been unemployed in the past 6 months, in which case it's just £20.
No, that doesn't apply to me.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Well, it's well worth the money. The 3 days cover the essential aspects of running a business. The first day covers legal issues such as tax, insurance, employment laws and health and safety. The second day covers marketing and pricing, and the third covers accounting and bookkeeping.
It sounds useful. Does the Business Basics course take place in Hanbridge too?
Let me see. No, it's not available in Hanbridge, I'm afraid. The nearest course to you would be in Renton. There's one on the 5th of March and another on the 18th of April.
Yes, that might be useful.
I'll send out a pack to you if you like, with some details of the courses and also some information about what you need to do to set up and who you need to register with.
Great.
Can I take your name?
Yes, it's Lilla Park.
Lilla? Is that L-A-I-L-A?
No, L-I-L-A.
Lilla Park. And your address, please.
39 White Lane, Eastleigh.
And have you got an email address? If so, we can send you details of any courses that are happening near you that you might be interested in.
Yes, it's lilla.park@rainbow.com.
Great. Well, I'll have the information pack sent out to you today.
Thanks, that'd be great.
My pleasure. Bye.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2.
Part 2.
First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Hello, is this the accommodation office?
Yes, how can I help you?
Well, I've got a bit of a problem. I'm staying at the Godfrey White dorm, and on Monday the warden came and told me that I have to move out this Thursday.
Really? How long have you been staying at the Godfrey White dorm?
For the last 10 weeks.
Oh, have you been doing one of the summer courses here then?
Yes, I've been doing the academic language course since the beginning of July.
And didn't you realize that your accommodation was temporary?
No, I thought I would be able to stay there for the whole year. I didn't read the small print on the document. The warden went through it with me, and now I see my mistake.
Oh dear, so you're looking for somewhere to stay then?
Yes.
Well, I'm afraid all the places in the dorms are full. I mean, there may be some students who don't show up when term starts, but we won't know that for the next couple of weeks. The best thing you can do is look for a private house. You'll have to share with 3 or 4 other students. Meals aren't included in the price, of course, as they are in the university dorms, and you'll have to contribute to the electricity bills.
Where can I find out about these houses?
I've got a list here, but it's not up to date. Rooms are taken up every day, so it's hard to know whether a house has a free place or not. I can give you a photocopy of this list, and you can ring round.
Can I use the phone here?
I'm afraid not. If we let everyone who asks do that, there'd be someone here all day.
Do you have a map? It'd be useful to know where these places are.
Yes, I can give you a map. This one's got the bus routes on it, too, so you can find out how easy it is to get from the house to the university.
Great. And what if I can't find a place before Thursday?
Well, the YMCA offers cheap beds. It's located halfway between here and the city center. You can get a bed in a shared room there, and you can also buy cheap meals. But you should phone up and book a bed in advance. It's very busy this time of year. I'll give you the number. Do you need a pen?
No, don't worry. I've got one.
So, the number's 482-5903.
482-5903.
That's right. Anything else I can help you with?
No, that's everything, thanks. Bye.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
Morning, everyone. Now, in today's talk, I'm going to talk about tunnels, and I'm going to talk about the main ways in which tunnels are constructed. Now, I'm sure you know what a tunnel is, but I'll give you a definition anyway. It's an underground passageway, and it's completely enclosed, except for exits, usually one at each end. Before you start building any tunnel, it's necessary to perform a comprehensive geotechnical investigation of ground conditions. This is done by taking samples from boreholes. That means drilling a narrow shaft into the ground and analyzing the rock. After this has been done, engineers can choose the most appropriate method for excavating the tunnel and supporting the ground. If these samples don't reveal enough information, maybe it's difficult to detect the exact location of faults, for example, then a pilot tunnel will be drilled. Pilot tunnels have a smaller diameter than the main tunnel, and so it will be easier to support should any problems arise. This smaller tunnel can be incorporated into the final tunnel later on. Another alternative is to drill horizontal boreholes ahead of the advancing tunnel face. Now, are there any questions before I go on to construction methods? No? Good. So the type of construction you choose will depend on a wide range of things: the type of rock, the groundwater conditions, how long and how wide your tunnel is going to be, how far underground it is, and the final use of the tunnel. There are 3 main types of tunnel. The cut and cover technique. This is when a trench is dug up and then covered over. the bored tunnel, which is constructed without removing the ground above it, and the immersed tube tunnel, which is used underwater. Let's look at these in more detail, starting with the cut and cover method. As I said, this is done by digging a trench and roofing it with an overhead support system strong enough to carry whatever is to be built over the tunnel. There are two types of cut and cover method. In the bottom-up method, a trench is built with ground support as necessary, and the tunnel is constructed in the trench using concrete or arches or even brickwork. Then the trench is filled in again. But there's another method, the top-down method, in which the roof beams and the side walls are put into place before any of the ground is dug out. Only when the roof and the walls are in place does excavation take place. The advantage of this system is that it allows minimal disturbance to surface features such as roads and buildings. The cut and cover tunnel type is obviously better for tunnels which are quite shallow. London underground stations are good examples, not the tunnels themselves, but the area where the ticket halls are located. The underground tunnels were created using the boring method. Bored tunnels are preferable in most cases because they eliminate the need to buy up the land on the surface. As a result, it's quicker and there is no need for long planning inquiries. Bored tunnels are created using boring tunnels, and there are a variety of these available which can operate in different conditions from hard rock to soft ground with a high water content. Another important thing that the engineer needs to know is the stand-up time. This denotes how long the tunnel will stay up by itself before support is needed. Obviously, hard rock and certain clays will have a longer stand-up time than sand and fine soils. It's also important to know the groundwater levels because if there is any water leaking into the tunnel, the stand-up time will be reduced. Groundwater levels, however, can be reduced by ground freezing. Pipes are inserted into the ground surrounding the tunnel and cooled. This surrounds the tunnel in frozen soil, which keeps the water out. Another way to reduce groundwater levels is to pump the water out. Tunnel shape also affects the stand-up time. If a tunnel is wider than it is high, it is more difficult to support, whereas if a tunnel is higher than it is wide, the project is easier. Furthermore, rectangular or square tunnels are more difficult to support than circular ones. Now let's go on to the immersed tunnel. Morning, everyone. Now, in today's talk,
That is the end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turn to section 3. Section 3. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 27. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 27.
We have arrived at the city of Arcaba in the western part of the country. This is your free day in our excursion, but if you follow the instructions on the map I've just given out, you'll be able to sightsee the city on your own during the day. I'll pick you up at this spot again in 6 hours, that is at 6 p.m. Please try to be punctual, as we need to head off to Sustain to spend the night there. And remember, we'll have dinner together on the way. Now take a look at the map. I'll give you a short description of the most important places that you shouldn't miss. Ready? In the centre of the city is the National Congress, from where Independence Avenue goes straight to the railway station, at the northernmost point of the city. West of the National Congress is St Paul's Park, rectangular in shape and extending almost to the limits of St James's Circus, a circular area where you'll find colourful antique shops and cafes. St James's Circus is overlooked by a row of modern buildings belonging to the Army running alongside it on the east. From the National Congress, a straight, narrow road branches off to the left. It reaches the Modern Art Museum just inside the city boundary.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 28 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 28 to 30.
The Modern Art Museum presents a most extensive display of works of art, from architecture and design, prints and illustrated books, to film and media. As additional information, it's good to know that a range of hills surrounds the coast in the broadest part of the country, in a rough semicircle about 30 kilometres away from the sea. These hills provide hiking in the summer and skiing in winter. The hills continue eastwards along the middle of the narrower part of the country, where the beaches attract tourists from all over the world in summer. It is a marvellous capital city, and it's renowned for its gastronomy based on seafood. It's also of historic interest because of the role the city played in the Revolution. Does anybody play golf? Golf courses are one of the most traditional games in the country, and there are several good courses around the city. You don't have time to visit the surrounding vineyards, but if you happen to have the chance, I'd rather you try the local wine. You'll never forget it. Anyway, whether you come to Arcaba in winter or in summer, you'll always find somewhere to enjoy and relax. Have fun and be back on time.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to Part 4.
Part 4.
First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Last month, the renowned and much-loved singer Lena Horne died in New York, aged 92. This Afro-American singer and civil activist worked in America in the golden era of stage and screen, meeting such great names as Billie Holiday and Duke Ellington. We have with us here in the studio Joel Lightwater to tell us more about Lena Horne's remarkable life.
Thank you, John. Lena Horne was born in 1917 to a Brooklyn family, described by a prominent writer as the talented 10th, a name which was given to those members of the African American community who were educated and socially prominent. Her family were activists in African American rights. Her grandmother, Cora Calhoun, was in fact the founding member of the NAACP, that is, the National Association for the Advancement of Coloured People. Indeed, at the age of 2, Lena was photographed parading in a protest. Her childhood was split between her grandparents' townhouse in Brooklyn and her mother's lodgings in Harlem, her father having left the family when Lena was only 3 years old. She went to school at Brooklyn Girls High, but when she started singing at the famous Cotton Club at the age of 16, she dropped out without a diploma. All her life, Lena's mother Edna had hoped that Lena could use her performances to break down race barriers. This was not an easy thing to do in the race-conscious culture of the time. At one point, Lena was advised to advertise her creamy complexion as Latin, something she refused to do. While later in her career, studio executives in Hollywood suggested that she darken her skin colour with makeup. Matters relating to racial equality were always high up on Lena's priorities. During World War II, when she was entertaining soldiers and prisoners of war, she noticed that she was always being asked to perform for groups which segregated in terms of colour. In the rare instances where she sang for mixed groups, white German prisoners of war were seated in front of the African American servicemen. She soon refused to perform for such occasions, and, since the US Army refused to allow integrated audiences, she put on her own show for a mixed-colour audience. After the war years, Lena had the opportunity to move into the glamorous world of Hollywood, and she was the first African American to be signed on a long-term studio contract. However, this was an age when the colour barrier was still strong. Black actors rarely had the chance to play anything more than maids and butlers. Although Lena was beginning to achieve a high level of notoriety, she found that she rarely had the chance to act, and many of her lines were cut during the editing process. Only in 2 incidences did she play a character that was central to the plot. But Lena's elegance and powerful voice were unlike anything that had come before, and both the public and the executives in the entertainment industry began to take note. By the mid-40s, Horne was the highest-paid black actor in the country, and her songs were instant classics. However, Horne's great fame could not prevent the wheels of the anti-communist machine from bearing down on her. During the 1950s, she was marked as a communist sympathizer as a result of her civil rights activism. She soon found herself blacklisted and unable to work on television or in the movies. At this time, however, she continued to sing in nightclubs and made some of her best recordings. In the 60s, she was once again back in the public eye. Since the 16-year-old danced her first steps on the stage of the Cotton Club, much has changed. Thanks to her continued musical, theatrical and political efforts, she paved the way for many other non-whites in the entertainment industry. But what she will be remembered for most of all must be her ability to move generations of audiences with her shimmering resonant voice, singing the classic greats like Black Coffee and the unforgettable Stormy Weather.
Last month, the renowned and much-loved singer Lena Horne died in New York, aged 92. This Afro-American singer and civil
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.